Alrighty, so this is going to be a training on how to provision Unifi devices as well as a general overview of Unifi. I'm going to pretend like it's not recording because I don't want to make this super instructive. I want to make sure you guys are understanding it more so in the moment and then have this as a reference. So all of our Unifi devices are controlled through a cloud-based Unifi controller. So you can see here this Unifi TLIT64610.com. This is actually running off of the same thing that the dashboard runs off of. So that's why it's got that same TLIT64610. So the dashboard's HDSS subdomain, and then this is the Unifi subdomain. So this link, we have an IT glue. You just have to get it and go to this URL, and you'll get to a login screen. We'll have to add you guys as users that can log in if we haven't already. But once you get in, you're going to be presented with a company that's pulled up. So we have essentially each of these are separated into different sites. So in the controller, we've got a whole bunch of different sites that are set up. Let's just go to the sites overview. So these are all of the different sites that we can see inside of Unifi. So you've got our office here. You can see that we've got 3 active devices there. One of them is going to be our switch, and then we have 2 access points. For YHB, they've got, well, that's just an active device. I'm not sure exactly what that is. But they've got, a number of different devices as well, 14 active devices. So actually this is where the devices are. So 14 devices. So this is where you can see all of our different sites. Now, if you want to go and look at information for one, so let's say we want to look at Loud and Gun, you can go here and it'll bring you to the dashboard for Loud and Gun. So this is where you can see information about, the access points, the uplink and downlink, things like that. So navigation on the left, there's the dashboard, there's the map. The map's really cool because it kind of shows you the layout. Doesn't make as much sense for something like this, but it does for something like where we're going to the fair soon, Clark County Ruritan, because this actually has kind of the way that the devices are meshing. So you can see that this is a meshed access point with this. Another good one is YHB, because they've got a ton of devices that are set up all on different sites. So you can see like this is one site, this is a different site, these are all different sites. These 2 sites are meshed together. So pretty cool to be able to see it all laid out. And you can show clients too. So this is actually, basically each of these are a different site at the end of it. And you've got the different clients that are connected to each, and you can see in some cases too they're actually meshing. So in this Richmond office, this one's not plugged in, so you can see it's meshing. So cool way to see all the different setups that they have. This access point doesn't actually have anything connected to it. So anyway, if we hop over to devices now, these are all of the different devices that are, let me do this because I think my Zoom is weird. There we go. These are all the different devices that are set up for that particular site. Again, you can toggle between the sites. Where is it? It seems to be gone. I think my Zoom is weird or something. There it is. So you can toggle between the different sites here, and that's where you can see all the devices. So you can see they've got 6 devices that they haven't even provisioned yet. All that. Clients. This is all of the wireless clients and the wired clients that are set up with them. You can specify if it's wired or wireless. This company only has wireless, but if we go to Loud and Guns, for example, they've got 1 wireless client connected to their Wi-Fi, and then 16 wired clients. And then the last couple here are more for just viewing some more detailed information. We don't look at these too often, but there's some statistics. So if someone were saying hey, my traffic is really slow, we might be able to go check the statistics to see, is that actually true, and what kind of things are they doing on their network. And then the insights, this is basically a way to kind of narrow down some information about different clients and kind of help with troubleshooting. So you can look at things like neighboring access points. So these are actually other access points around the area of Loud and Guns. that might be causing problems. So if we see that the signal strength is really bad, or if there's some channel overlap, you can actually go here and view other surrounding access points. So you can see some people's hotspots are even on here. So pretty cool. There's a few other options. Dynamic DNS, there's not going to be anything for them. There might be for some other customers too, though, like Lord Fairfax, they might have something. Yeah. So we actually have DDNS set up for them, and this is detecting that. Yeah, so some cool things, network logs. So this doesn't have any log connections yet. Oh, there it goes. It's starting a network log live. So this is actually a live network log. Now, this doesn't seem to be company specific because I'm seeing YHB and some other things in here, but yeah, Boxwood. So this doesn't seem to be company specific. This seems to be just across the entire thing, but whatever. Anyway, so important thing to note here, though, is inside of the settings menu down here, this is where you actually go to configure things about their site. So you've got the site name, the territory, the time zone. That's actually wrong. Let's just go ahead and fix that. Sometimes it defaults to something incorrect. Maybe I can change it. Oh, next page. So yeah, this will have all of the information about the site. So let's pick something that makes sense. I don't think there's an Eastern one if I remember correctly. So we're just gonna have to pick something that is close to us. So I think we're -4, right? And I think we're -4. I'll have to check what the other ones are if we can't find it. New York. There we go. Let's pick that one. Yeah, so there's a few other pieces of site information here. Again, we should probably change this. But yeah, you can change the SSH login for these. You can change some more metadata about the site. Now, if we go to wireless networks, let me just save that real quick. If we go to wireless networks, these are the two SSIDs that we set up for them. For Lord Fairfax, we're using as an example, I guess, here. So you can see this ties back to a lfswcd.local network that I created. So this is where you actually set up the SSID password. You can assign it to different APs. So let's say they have like an AP that they only want for like accounting. We can make like a special accounting wireless network, so they can only access that from that one access point. And then here's actually where the networks are set up. So you can see they've got a VPN network, but they've also got this local network that ties back to that guest network. Depending on if you have a USG, USG is a Unified Security Gateway, you'll have some additional firewall options. So this has some things set up to allow them to use their VPN. A couple other options here that aren't as useful for us: the threat management, DPI, profiles. If you're using Radius or if you're using VPN, you'll have to do some stuff there. This is Radius accounts for logging in. Different admins that have access to this. So yeah, the main things that you need to know, there are wireless networks and networks. Now, if you go down here, this is actually, underneath of this line, these are actually system-wide settings. So anything you change here is actually going to change across the entire system. So that's just something to keep in mind. One other thing to keep in mind is this has an old and a new user interface. They're still in the process of moving things over to the new UI. So if I toggle this on real quick and then apply, your UI when you first sign in might look something more like this. When it loads up here. The problem with the new UI is it looks really nice, but it's still missing a lot of stuff. So we can see like things like this, but when you actually go to system and to actually start configuring things, networks and whatnot, it's pretty limited as far as what you can actually do. There's still some things missing. So anyway, we'd want to switch that back over to the other UI, which again, I'm going to have to now find how to do that from this section. So let me just locate that real quick. That's going to be, tell me if you see it. Back up. backup, support information, system logging, SNMP, admins, other configuration. Man, I cannot find that. That sucks. Hold on a second. Let's pause this while I look for it. Okay, so I found where that is in case you ever lose it. It's under legacy interface. You just got to hit enable and then deactivate, and it will switch you back over to the old one, which in my opinion I still think is much easier to navigate. But anyway, so yeah, let's talk about sites, because we're here today to actually add this access point for Armor Fence. So let's take a look and see. So we actually don't have a site yet for Armor Fence, so this will be a good opportunity for us to make one. So if we get a new customer and we need to start setting up their Unifi network, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to this drop down and we're going to go to add a new site, and we're going to name it accordingly. So Armor Fence, and submit. And it's pretty much as simple as that. Now we have a site. So this is essentially the container that it creates. So if I go to the settings, I'm going to have to change this back to New York again, because for some reason it likes to get that wrong. So there that is. And let me save that real quick with TLIT admin instead. If you notice, when you first come on here, there's not going to be any wireless networks. There's also not going to be any networks except this default that provides a 192.168.1.0. Now, we only need to define a network if the unified devices we're putting in are going to be providing some sort of networking like DHCP or something like that. You can just take this unified device and just plug it in to any old router. Like, you could take this to your house and plug it in, and it would start working like an access point if you had the wireless networks configured, which would allow clients to connect. So like, for example, one place where we do that is actually at, where is it? Winchester Mitsubishi. So they actually have a main network at the place, the actual office, but they also have the A1 auto area, which is just using DHCP. So like these A1s, there's no networks that are configured for 10.1. Those are just getting those straight from the Comcast box. So we actually don't have any 10.1 networks connected here or configured, but we don't need to, because the access point's just going to pick up whatever whatever the DHCP is serving. Now they do have a USG at the main office. That's where we specify the actual network for that. So that 10. Whatever it was, that's actually going to be specified here. So the 10.207, that's assigned to the USG. All right, so let's talk now about actually getting these set up. So inside the box for these access points, and the setup's going to be a little bit different for each device, but for access points, it's generally the same. But the process of adopting that we're about to go over is the same across the board. So for these Unifi Pro access points, if you buy them individually, they come with a PoE injector inside the box. So there's this PoE injector that's in the box. I'm not going to take it out because I actually have one down there that I'm just going to use. But it comes with a mounting bracket. It comes with, thank you. It comes with a mounting bracket. It comes with the access point. And what we need to do before is we need to get this powered on and set up on our network. So it's got this like ring thing on it, and in order to get this off, you have to just lift this tab and twist it, because typically what you'd be doing is this would be mounted to the ceiling like that, and you'd have to stick a paper clip inside that little thing and try to jam it up and twist it, which is pretty difficult to do. But yeah, twist that off, and then there's this little rubber thing that you got to take out, and that exposes, that was right there, that exposes the ports. So there's two ports. There's a primary and a secondary. We're just going to use the primary port. Also inside of here there is a reset in case we need to factory reset this for any particular reason, like we screwed up the dressing or something. And then on the back there's a barcode, and just before the hyphen, the 4 digits that come before the hyphen in that code are actually the last 4 digits of the MAC address. So let's get this hooked up. So I have to plug it in over here. We're actually going to use PoE to power this, because it doesn't have a adapter otherwise, so I'm going to plug this in back here. And then I have a long gray cable here that's going to my switch. I'm going to plug that into the LAN port on the injector. And then this light gray cable I'm going to plug into PoE, and that's going to go to the actual access point. So that's going in to the AP here. If I can get it. There we go. So you won't be able to see it very well, but once it gets power, it's going to turn white like that, and it'll start flashing white in a second here, and that means it's powering on. So next step, the problem with these guys is they're automatically set up for DHCP, so we're not going to know what the address is. We're going to have to figure that out for ourselves. So that's where our advanced IP scanner comes in handy. So I'm going to actually go ahead and adjust this to be our network range. And I'm just going to start scanning. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking to find this MAC address when it shows up, which the last four of it are 8E3B. So that's what we're looking for. Now it might take a second to come on because it's still flashing, so we might have to run it again, but just let me know if you see it. Probably gonna have to run it a second time. Yeah, there's a lot of devices too. 8E. So that actually might be it right there. I might have read it wrong. No, that's not it. Yeah, it's definitely 8E3B. So we'll have to run it one more time because it's probably still turning on. So yeah, it's showing as white now. So let's just run it one more time. And let's just do 8E3B. And I'll just cut that for now so we can let it run. Sometimes you get lucky and it tells you the manufacturer and it says Unifi or whatever, but sometimes it doesn't. Okay. 83B, that's it right there. Okay, so it's got an IP address of 192.168.20.196. We wouldn't have known that unless we scanned for it, which is why we had to scan for it. So now the only way to actually connect to these is to use PuTTY to SSH into them. So I'm going to go ahead and type in that IP address, 196, and just hit open. And it'll bring up this security alert. You can just hit accept. And for every factory reset, factory default device, it's going to be a login of UBNT and then a password of UBNT. So now we're actually in the device, and this is actually just like a Linux device. So if I do a list, it'll do this. If I ping, 192.168.20.1, it's going to try to ping that device. So it's actually just a Linux device. You can run commands exactly like you would in Linux. So the point is, though, it's got a couple of special commands built in. One of them is going to be this one. Or sorry, set inform rather. Now this won't work when I run it because it requires an argument, but what this command does is it actually points the device to our cloud controller. So what I need to do is I need to go grab that link, which again, this is in IT Glue. I'm just using my own bookmark, but this is all in IT Glue to grab. And once I have that, I'm going to run this command, set inform, and I'm going to paste in my address. Now, again, what this is doing is it's changing the inform address of this access point to point to our controller. So I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to send an adoption request to that location. Now, when I go back over to here and I go to devices, I'm going to be able to see that my 83B device is now showing up in the controller pending adoption. The important thing here though is it's going to show up under every single site. So if I change to Clems, it's going to show up there. It's going to change. It's basically ambiguous what site it goes to at the moment. So what I need to do is I need to select the site that I actually want to adopt it into. So Armor Fence in this case. And then I need to click on it and click adopt. And that's actually going to move it in. Now, if you did that step wrong, you can pretty easily move it to a new location. The way you do that is, let's say I wanted to move this BART device over. If you go to config, you can actually manage the device and you can move to a new location. So you can go to this forget device section and move it to a new place if you accidentally do it wrong. But as long as you select the right place first, you'll be okay. So let's go ahead and just set this up as UAP1 just to get the name different. So that's adopting, so we'll give that just a moment here while it adopts, and then we'll continue. All right, so we gave that a little bit of time, and now you can see this is provisioning. Provisioning basically means it's receiving the configuration for that site onto that device. So whatever settings and config we put in, it's going to take that and put it on the device, so it knows, you know, what to point to, what to do. So that's running right now. Now this access point is pretty much pointless at the moment because it doesn't actually have any, it's not broadcasting anything, it's just sitting there doing nothing. So what we need to do is we actually need to make a wireless network. Wireless network is actually what's going to allow us to connect to the device. Now I don't know what Armor Fence has. I don't know what they are, what their current setup is, but I'm just going to make like a placeholder one for them here so we can at least test it on our phones. So I'm just going to call this Armor Fence Wi-Fi, and we're going to enable it. You want to set the correct security, so you don't want to do open or web ever, really. You always want to do pretty much WPA personal is what it's going to be 99% of the time. There's only, I think, one company that we actually do radius for, which is this enterprise option. And then for the security key, I'm just going to make it Armor Fence 123 exclamation mark, because again, this is just a placeholder. You want to talk with the customer and see what they want the SSID and password to be. They might already have one. And then here, this is where if we needed to, we could tie it back to a network. We don't actually need to do this in this case because we don't have any networks that are being passed through this device anyway. It's using any Unifi networks, I should say. We're using our corporate network in the office here, but you could specify a network that's actually being controlled through Unifi. I think you do have to pick one, but it's not actually going to do anything, which makes sense because there's no, even though we set this to 1.0 or that's the default, there's nothing on the network telling it to actually get that address. The thing that's controlling our addressing is the DHCP server that we have on site. So it's still going to have that 20.196 address because it's just getting it through DHCP. So now when I go to my Wi-Fi, as soon as this loads, which it might take just a second, I should eventually be able to see this show up. So we'll give this just another minute here while this provisions. So the way you can tell if it's in like a complete state is if it's not provisioning anymore. So here you can see that finished, it's no longer provisioning, and I should in theory be able to see that wireless network being sent out. So there it is right there. And if I connect to it, it should allow me to get on. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and it's Armor Fence 123 exclamation mark. There it is, and I'm going to hit next. So there we go. So I'm actually on this access point now. So I set up this access point. I took it out of the box. I created a site. I provisioned it. I set up the wireless network. And now I'm actually able to get wireless through this access point and through that network. So otherwise, that's pretty much it. Let me just go back and make sure I'm not missing anything. So there's the access point. Oh, one thing right here, this little symbol up here, upgrade, this means that the device has a firmware upgrade. So whenever this was sent out, it was sent out with one, level of firmware. It's whatever version it was. And then by the time we actually plugged it in and turned it on for the first time, Unifi has released a firmware upgrade. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and hit upgrade here and confirm. So this is actually going to go offline temporarily. So I'm probably going to need to switch back over to my other wireless here. So let's do that. And I'll let that do its upgrade. So that usually takes a few minutes. You can actually set up maintenance windows and things for these, but we don't need to do that for this site just because it's pretty simple. So yeah, that's about it for that. One thing I will also explain is meshing with these devices. So let's hop over to YHB. So with Unifi devices, if I were to unplug this from the LAN, if let's say this were somewhere else on the network and we had 3 or 4 different access points that were all wired, if I were to unplug one of them, it's not going to lose connection. What Unifi does, which is really cool, is it'll automatically start meshing. So it'll automatically try to find the closest access point and start meshing. So in this status column, any of these that say wireless, that means that they're actually meshing to another access point on the network. So these two are wireless, these LOU, WAP devices. So actually this links access point right here, this is wired, but these two are actually connecting to this wirelessly using meshing. So meshing is different than a relay in that a relay is more for actually rebroadcasting the signal completely. So it's basically taking that signal and you completely rebroadcasting that. What meshing is it's not a rebroadcast. It's actually just another hop. So instead of this device taking the signal, so here's an example that we were just looking at with the Loudon office. Instead of this device right here taking the broadcast from here and essentially creating a completely new copy of that broadcast and sending it out, this is actually going to hop directly between these two devices. And hold on, I'll come back in a second. This is actually going to create a hop directly between these devices and the primary access point. So it's not rebroadcasting. It's like a full transmission. It's as if you were plugging into a switch and then that switch got plugged into another switch and then it went to your device. It's basically happening like that, but in wireless space. So it's sort of like how a switch is actually routing the traffic and not just repeating the traffic. So it's not like it's not like a wired repeater where it takes that signal and then boosts it and then repeats it. It's actually doing like the hops and the routing functionality, which makes it a lot better because you're not getting signal degradation. It's more seamless. And the nice thing about these is it's all based on signal strength. So if one of these goes down, like let's say this went down, if there was another access point somewhere that was relying on that, it's just going to find the closest signal. So if there was one sitting in between here and it was hopping off of this one up here, but this one went down, the one in the middle would just start going to this one instead. So it's all dynamic and it's able to adjust. And that's actually how the Clark County Fairground is working, which we're, like I said, we're going to soon. Let me hop out of here. If we go to their page and then their map, they don't have anything plugged in. They don't have anything set up right now because they're not active at the moment. But like, let's say that this office one went down, the horticulture one would probably just hop over to the homemaking. So people who are near the horticulture, they're not going to lose access just because the office went down. It's all dynamic. It'll switch over to the next strongest signal. Other than that, though, the UI is pretty straightforward to follow through. Just look through everything. You can create sites all you want. It's pretty easy to create them and delete them. So if you wanted to create like a test site and grab like a spare access point and try provisioning it, that's definitely something you can do. Wireless to the cable limitations. Yeah. So So yeah, the question posed is wireless set up due to cable length limitations? Sometimes. So if like in this case, it doesn't make any sense to have like the meshed access points with the cables because it would take forever and to pull the cables and it'd be a lot of maintenance to get it set up. But sometimes in an office, you don't want to run cable. Like I might not want to run a cable from here to the other side of the office because I've already, if you have drop ceiling, you're lucky. But if you have, gyp walls, it's going to be really hard to put in and pull everything through. So you might want to just mesh everything so it's easier to set up. And then, of course, having wireless in general just allows a lot more different types of devices to be able to connect into your network, which can be really handy. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions?
Gateways. Is that a topic for a different day?
Yeah, so I'll do that real quick. So let's show just a couple different types of devices. So let's not do Madison Wealth. Let's do Loud and Guns. So we did an access point today, but you can also have switches that are done through Unifi. They're provisioned the exact same way. You plug them into your network, you scan for the device, and then you SSH into it with those same passwords. It follows the same concept. And then same with USGs. The nice thing about USGs is if you provision the USG first, any device that you plug into that USG to try to send up to the cloud, it'll automatically, you don't have to do the adoption process. Like it'll automatically point it to our controller. Well, you don't have to do the set in form. It'll like if I set this USG up and then I took this access point out of the box, plugged it into it, I would automatically see it in here because it just skips a step because it assumes if you're plugging into the USG, you automatically are going to want it on that network. So that's a nice little shortcut.
Did you then remove it from wired?
Yeah. So you always have to have at least one access point that's acting as like the direct connection between the USG because there's no wireless connection in the USG. So you have to have one, but then if you had another access point, like so in the case of YHB, that's kind of what they're doing. They've got those two Loudon access points. One of them, or the three, one of them is like the link connection to the other two, and then the other ones are just around the office, just connecting into that one.
So one's tethered to the USG, the other two are the
Exactly. Yeah. There's plenty more we can go over, but I think that's good for this video. It's getting pretty long, so let's go ahead and finish it up.